All right, guys, how's it going? Mark here again, and today I got a special guest.
Christina. Hi.
So Christina, tell me a little about yourself. Where are you from?
I'm from Orange County. I was born and raised in Buena Park, and I'm still there.
Okay, and how was that growing up?
It wasn't the best neighborhood. It was considered more of like ghetto, you know, not the safest, not the nicest. But it's been cool to still be there 35 years later and to have seen it evolve over all those years. And it's still not the nicest or the best place, but it's safer. And I'm glad I've been able to see that progress.
All right, cool. And then a little about yourself. You're into fitness a lot, right?
Yeah, so my fitness journey started about 2 or 3 years ago now. It is a big part of my life. It's transitioned and evolved throughout the years also. It's not like my whole life. It's part of my life, but it is very important to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what got you into fitness? Was it during a breakup or something, or you just wanted to get in better shape?
So I actually struggled with digestive issues for a lot of years before starting my fitness journey. And so for years I was like trying to find remedies, trying to find different, healing for symptoms that would arise. And so like after going to so many doctors and trying all these things, diet, supplements, and things like that, it was actually during COVID. We had more time, and then everyone was concerned about their health and like trying to get movement in because we were all locked up in our houses. So that's when I kind of started to want to explore like, okay, well, I do need to be moving if I'm not leaving my house. And what does that look like? And so I was very hesitant because I had a lot of fear that held me back from like actually wanting to move and to like exert my body because of my health, right? And like the challenges with that. I always felt fearful to overexert my body, and like even it's all trauma related and trauma based, right? Like trauma and fears from like childhood and from the past. So I used to always like have a fear also of getting my heart rate to elevate because I thought like, what if something happens to me? What if like I have a heart attack or I struggled with anxiety. Well, I struggled with anxiety a lot and depression. So I didn't feel safe in my body, and that was always just fears that I had. Like, what if my heart rate elevates and I can't control it, And like, yeah, it was scary to me. And so that held me back from actually like pushing my limits with my physical body. And so I would stick to like stretching, yoga, like that type of movement, or just like, hiking, like nothing that would elevate my heart rate too much. That's how I started. So like I would say like maybe for like the first year I would go to the gym and I would just mostly stretch. And if I used any equipment, it was like very lightweight because again, I was like fearful of feeling being in my body and pushing its limits.
Okay, so
yeah.
What caused a lot of your anxiety? Was it just the way you felt like you looked?
I, like everyone else, had an interesting childhood, and so I had different trauma and like different things that would trigger me because of the trauma. So what caused it? Just different things that like different ideology that I developed growing up, and like, yeah, it's just ideology and thoughts that I took on as like being me and myself. And so like I placed those limits on me, and I was scared to like believe anything else.
So when you say limits, was it something you saw like girls in magazines, Photoshop pictures of people on steroids?
not necessarily. I remember like the one particular in regards to like the heart attack or having like heart related issues. I remember still to this day, my mom used to go and pick me up from elementary school and we would walk home. And so she would be chit-chatting with our other moms on our walk home. And so I remember one day, I was very shy, timid, insecure girl growing up. That was just part of my personality and maybe the way I was like brought up. But I was always very observant. So I remember my mom having a conversation with one of the other moms. They were talking about, I think it was like, they said, oh, this young person had a heart attack or had a heart issue. And like, wow, they were so young. How did that happen? And, you know, like not knowing the full story, but just hearing that as a little girl, like it freaked me out. Like, heart attack and then they died, like, and why? Like they were young, maybe they were healthy. So the fact that like it could happen to anyone, or what if it happens to me, or, you know, like the uncertainty of like just collapsing and dying would scare anyone, especially a young child or young kid who doesn't really know like how their body works. So that's why I'm saying like for a lot of my life, like I didn't understand how my body worked and I was scared of my body and like what I could feel.
And how old are you during that time? You said like in elementary school?
This was, I want to say maybe like 4th or 5th grade when I remember hearing this story. And then after that, I just always remember being scared. Like, what if that same thing that happened to that young person happens to me? And then also in elementary school, one of my teachers, who was like one of the best teachers that I had, she was gone for like 2 weeks and then came back. I remember also still like very clearly, she sat us all on the carpet, on the rug, and she told us basically she had been gone because her husband died of a heart attack. And she told us the story. She said, it was in the middle of the night, we were asleep, and I heard him get up. And she said he went to the kitchen, and like he usually does, he probably was going to go grab a glass of milk or something. That's what she figured. And she said he went to the kitchen, and that's what she assumed. And that, I don't know how she found out, but that he had picked up the phone to try to call 911, and he collapsed and he passed because of a heart attack. So like hearing these stories as a little girl, and again, like not understanding why it could happen or how it could happen, it brought fear to me, like, you know, for me to like really live in my body.
So you, speaking of death, what was your first experience with death? Do you remember like your first loss?
I can't. Oh, okay. Well, I guess first loss, like from a family member, that I could remember was my grandpa. That was when I was a teenager, and that was also difficult for me. But for myself also, like talking about going back to like my own health, in kindergarten, I struggled with like health issues myself. So I think that was just already part of like my journey. Like I struggled with health myself. So I was always fearful of my own death.
So now, how old are you again? You're like 28?
35.
35?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought
you were
young.
Thank you.
I thought you were younger than me, actually.
Like that.
Okay. Well, I'll be 34 next month. But
okay.
I see. So you were pretty much growing up in the 90s too compared to now. So obviously technology kind of came into play. So does that kind of affect your mental health with social media being around? Like you're just constantly looking at everybody's best self. It's all curated. And then you look at your own life, like, why is my life not that, you know, exciting compared to someone else?
Yes. So actually, I know social media has been, you know, relevant for years now. But surprisingly, you know, just because of, again, like maybe the way I just grew up and like my mindset, I kind of feel like I put myself in a box for a lot of my even young adult life. So I didn't have social media. I didn't even know about like TikTok, Instagram. Surprisingly, it's still shocks me. Like, how the heck did you, maybe I heard about it, but I was never like intrigued enough to like go find out what it was. Obviously I knew MySpace, Facebook, but I just dabbled in it briefly. I didn't get on Instagram again and like all the social media stuff till like 2 or 3 years ago also. So all this is fairly still new to me. And yes, I have found myself, like everyone else, like comparing myself with other people in certain situations. And yes, it is, an addiction nowadays where you have to like learn how to control that area of your life. But then because of my personality, I tend to just gravitate more towards like nature or just like being with people that I enjoy having around or creating experiences. So I could say I try to be as self-aware as I can to place limits and boundaries. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I try to be mindful of that. I don't think I've gotten as sucked in as I could have.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah, because you're a lot more mature than most people are about it.
That, I guess, that also because I just started being on it, right? And so, yeah, I mean, like everyone, right? You start scrolling and then it like 30 minutes later, you're like, oh, yeah, I need to move on to the next thing. Happens to all of us, but I think like I try to be more mindful of it, and I know like, why am I there? Why am I on social media? Am I there to learn, or am I there for business purposes, or am I there for entertainment, Do
you feel like you're in control of your algorithm, or your algorithm is in control of you?
Definitely algorithm in control. Like, even though I could be self-aware, like you're not self-aware every second that you're on there. Like I find myself, you don't get to choose what pops on when you first go on there. And when you scroll, you don't get to choose your feed exactly, even though you have curated your followers, they still do sponsor posts. They still show you the most, like whoever they want to show you from your following. So you're not curating the whole experience. Of course, they do it for us and they draw us in, and they're in control.
So are you aware sometimes when you're having like kind of a bad day scrolling that, oh, okay, I'm scrolling, and then all of a sudden you see an X pop up on your feed and you're like, why is this here? Mm-hmm. Even when you don't follow them?
Yes. And like, sometimes those draw us in, because when I see something new or like, oh, sponsor, for this product, or they're advertising something, and then it draws me because I'm like, oh, I haven't seen that, or what is she talking about? Or, I'm interested. So it does work. But then at the same time, like when you start to realize, why am I seeing something that I didn't sign up to see? That's also, it can reframe your like, oh, catch it. And then like, be like, okay, well then let me get off, because I shouldn't just be sucked into anything that they offer me.
Yeah, I understand what you mean, because, back when social media first started, it's like you follow people to see what their life is about. And there wasn't an algorithm at the time. It would just show you everybody's feed that you were following. So it's like, oh, I follow all these people. Now it's like I follow thousands of people, but yet I still only see sponsored stuff and people I don't follow because the algorithm is trying to push things on me. But at the same time, I feel like those who are in control of the algorithms control the world. So TikTok has a different algorithm compared to YouTube. YouTube has a different algorithm compared to Instagram. Everybody has a sort of agenda to push on you, and it's either you're selling or you're sold, and a lot of people are usually sold. It's just, what are they trying to sell? And I feel sometimes when, you look, especially most people I feel like are more engaged with Instagram. So it's very easy to look at yourself and compare your life to somebody who's more curating their story, sharing their best moments of their life. And it's like, oh, I don't look like that. Well, that person is photoshopping things. They're using steroids or plastic surgery. They don't even look like that. And I think a lot of people get a little frustrated. They're like, oh, they're having another trip to, Dubai or Thailand or Bali or somewhere exciting. And I'm just at home, debating if I should go to the gym. So I think that's most people's lives, where it's just like, do you remember who you were before everybody told you who to be? And I think the biggest battle you have to deal with is the one with yourself. So my question to you is, do you like ever just get frustrated with the phone and turn it off?
See, it's very interesting because, again, like for me, being new to this, I feel like I give credit to social media in part for my evolution, even in my fitness life. Because again, like before, I was just stuck in my own little world and put myself in a box and didn't really have contact with like the outer world other than like the people that were in my day-to-day life. Like I didn't have access to the full scope of like all the knowledge that was out there and everything unless I went searching for it. And now you don't have to go searching for it. You just open your phone and, you start learning things. And so for me, let's just talk about like my fitness life. Like for me, in regards to that area of my life, I remember some girls that were influencers, fitness influencers, were the ones who really inspired me enough to start my own journey. So I get what you're saying. Like it can be like a negative thing and you become this person that you're like, oh, I became this because they made me, everything that is presented to you like creates just lots of copies of what is known as success nowadays, but for me it's like I used social media to inspire me, and a lot of those girls I give credit to because I looked up to them and they inspired me enough to like want to be like them or to want to try. And everyone's journey is different. So I'm not saying like, I wanted to be like them, but I didn't get stuck in I need to have exactly what they have, look exactly what they look like and everything. Like to me, it's like I took what I needed from them and then went on my own evolution with that. And that's what I feel like I've done in a lot of areas of my life and still continue to do, because we're all on our own journey and we're all growing, but like there's bits and pieces from different people that will help you become the version of you. And so it doesn't mean that like everyone that follows me has to have my life and look and be exactly like me, but there is like something in me that they could take for themselves and apply it, and it evolves, right? Because like some of the girls that I looked up to initially in my fitness journey, I don't anymore, because my perspective on fitness has evolved, and like the diet aspect, or like what I want to look like, or do I want to compete or not, like different things like that. Like it evolves over time. But my point is, everyone has something like to offer someone, and it's not always like a negative thing that like you're presenting something just for envy's sake, or like presenting the best things of you to show off. Sometimes like you should share your journey because there's people who just simply need to be inspired by you and what you have.
Makes sense. So your overall goal is to inspire everyone else, right?
So because I've had same thing with fitness, with health, with like just knowing what my options are, as in my career, or just like to broaden my perspective of the world. Like I've been able to do that because of me putting myself out there, and like looking at the social media world and like what is being posted. Like I wouldn't have been able to know what is going on across the world if it wasn't for social media in that way. News and like internet is different, but my point is like I've learned and I've grown and become who I am now because of people sharing their journey and their knowledge. And I've taken bits and pieces from different people and have made me who I am now, and it continues to evolve depending on like who I'm following or who I'm learning from.
So let's say, for example, someone is on the fence of trying to start their fitness journey and they're on day one, just like how you were. What got you to get to the first step?
So my health, for me specifically, it was because, I didn't want to feel sick anymore, and I knew I didn't want to have the life I had at that point for the rest of my life. I knew I had more in me. So For me, it was my health that really pushed me, and also like I have to be honest, like physical appearance, you know, I wasn't happy with the way I looked. I was like in my 20s and I was like underweight, like really skinny, and just had no vitality, no energy, and sick, you know. And then I see these girls that look feminine, look beautiful, and are living what, you know, they show like a happy life and a healthy life. And so yeah, I was drawn to making changes because of my health and because of obviously physical appearance. So to me, that was my inspiration for following what they did, is because they looked a certain way that I wanted to look.
So have you ever been in a toxic relationship?
Unfortunately, or fortunately, for the learning curve, I have multiple.
Multiple. So tell me about the first one. How old were you?
Well, I was 30, and that was, I'm gonna say, like the first guy that I truly like gave my heart and I loved, and the first guy that broke my heart, and it also it's also correlated with my fitness journey, because he was part of it. And I met him at a gym, and he was a personal trainer, and he was also a big influence in like pushing me past my limits. So I do have to give him credit and thank him for that. Yeah, it was just toxic from the start, and I should have known.
So who was more toxic, you or him?
I think we both had stuff we brought into the relationship, even though like that was like my first official at 30. I know it's crazy. That was like my first official relationship. I still wasn't exposed to like, you know enough of what is healthy and what isn't. And on the other side, he came with a lot of baggage. Like he was legally still married. And I was not aware of like that whole situation. He had a son. The wife, or, you know, baby mama, who he wasn't living with anymore, was very toxic. They were both very into like the fitness world, and so they were very fit and bodybuilding life and all that stuff. And I was like this newbie to the gym, and, you know, like you can imagine all the stories and everything. It was very traumatic for me also.
Sounds very stereotypical in that fitness community. I'm going to be honest with you. Hear it a lot. Yes,
but if you knew my history and my background and like who I was.
I'm not saying your history. I'm saying in that fitness community, it's always like, oh, the trainer, and then I've definitely heard that. I've seen that pattern.
I understand that, and I'm sure that's true. But I'm saying it's surprising for me specifically, because it's almost like really like it happened to me. like I said, that was like my first official relationship. I was a good girl before then. I was like conservative and a Christian for most of my 20s. Like I knew better. I thought I was, you know, would make smarter decisions and things like that. And
so when you see buff guys, it just all logic goes out the window?
Not anymore.
No, not anymore?
It took me a few times to finally learn that lesson.
I mean, not all learning comes from books, comes from experience, right?
True. And yeah, like I'm not going to say I regret any of it, because I did know better, but I stayed. I had some more learning to do, apparently.
You chose to stay, correct?
Yeah.
So tell me the little toxic things that you did. Can you at least admit the toxic things that you did?
Oh, yes. So that whole relationship in itself turned me into someone that I was like, I never, ever, and I'm admitting this in public, but I'm, you know, I like for other people to also learn from my journey and my mistakes. Yeah, I was in a very healthy place before that relationship mentally. Like, I knew what I wanted, even though I hadn't been in, any like official relationships. I just knew the standards, especially being Christian and being in that, I went through discipleship and I went through like just very extensive training on like how to have boundaries and how to like know what I want and what's healthy, what's not. I was modeled a lot of like what would be healthy and all that. So I was very firm in like my beliefs and like my values. But even still, I, went into that relationship and it turned me into someone that I remember like I would question like, who am I? Like, who did I become? I never in a million years would I have thought that I would be doing these things. Like, the whole relationship, because of the dynamics and everything, there was a lot of trust that was broken. And so a lot of the relationship, I felt like I had to keep tabs on someone, which, is never healthy.
So what do you mean by keeping tabs? You were like checking his phone?
Yes. No, like I knew that I needed to know where he was, when he was at certain places, who he was with and everything, because of the context of his history, especially like technically still being legally married, working through his son issues and like the custody issues with that, and it was just all drama like that.
It sounds like trust is already broken, but yet you still try to make it work.
Yes.
Do you feel like it's kind of a fallacy of sunk cost, where it's like you invested all this time and energy that if you invest more time and energy, that's just going to work out in the end?
No, I feel like part of me was always giving the benefit of the doubt, because that's just kind of like how I am as a person. Like, I always want to believe and see the best in people, even though, that shouldn't always be the case.
So you didn't love him for who he was. You loved him for who you wanted him to be, right?
Who I thought he could be.
You can't control other people. You know that, right?
Yes.
They're going to do what they're going to do regardless.
I am still learning that. So thank you for the reminder. I do believe that people can evolve and become a better version of themselves. And sometimes it does take someone else like calling you out on your bullshit. And I've seen it happen. And so like, I always want to give people the benefit of the doubt. That's one. But then also like believe that they want better. They want to be better for themselves. Not just for me, like for yourself, first. And then obviously, like, if I'm still around, like, it would impact our relationship. So, yeah, I gave them the benefit of the doubt. And then, yeah, it was still not gonna work out because, if they don't want to change, they're never gonna change.
Well, I mean, you got to look at it like this. How much you're paying in alimony, how much you're paying in child support, how much you're paying for a house you can't even live in. The answer is 0. It's not that bad. So, I mean, like I said, not all learning comes from books, comes from experience. You just go through things in order to understand things. And it's like when you put your hand in fire, you just know not to do that again. True. Hopefully you don't do it again.
I am so grateful that I did not get stuck in that relationship. Or like you said, that there are no strings attached with that person. So grateful. So, yes, you're right.
I get you. So in that relationship, you said you were checking up on him. So I'd imagine, was there a lot of gaslighting involved?
Yes. Even when I didn't know what gaslighting meant. It's funny, I have to give props or a shout out to the baby mama, because she was the one who, when we finally were able to like be face to face and talk and, no violence or anything involved between her and I, she brought up like gaslighting and how she feels that he would do that. And I was like, interesting. First of all, yes, you're right. It like dawned on me like, oh, he does that to you. And then I'm thinking, oh, he does that to me. And that's what gaslighting means. Cause like, I didn't even know what it was before. But yeah, there was some of that.
So what do you think draws people towards toxic relationships? Do you think it's the volatility of the ups and downs?
I think that people are hopeful, and they want things to work out with a certain individual. And then a big part of it, I think, is just the scarcity mindset. Like, at least for me, I know that was a big part of it, is like, you think like, I've been waiting for a person or my person or whatever you believe in. And when you finally feel like this person checks so many boxes or whatever, it's almost like you just want to make it work because you're scared of like losing that person. Then if you lose that person, you lose the dream or you lose your future or whatever you think was going to happen between that relationship. So yeah, I think that people stay because they're scared of not having that person and what they're scared that they won't find someone else.
So when you were a kid, did you have like a dream wedding growing up?
That's funny because I didn't. And that's also something that I'm always like, why? Again, okay, maybe because like I never fantasized as like a young girl, and I never gave myself permission to dream and to like envision things and things like that. Not that I didn't want it, but I just never like dreamed about it. So for me, when I'm like, I'm not, at my best, and I knew that I was working on myself, and then this like hot looking guy, personal trainer, like who first time I saw him, I was like, whoa, who's that? And I would never, ever, ever think they would even like second glance me when that guy turns around and like is giving me, eye contact and eventually starts talking to me and asks for my number and everything. Like, of course, then you think like, well, this is meant to be. Like, I didn't dream of it, but like, this is gonna happen. And then you start to, of course, like want to play out the best case scenario of how like it should be, or this would be a beautiful story to tell, right? Like, even if you didn't dream about it before, like, oh, this is so romantic, this would be like such a beautiful love story. And so you just try to like plan it and make it work, even though it's not what you envisioned in the past.
So that being said, about the personal trainer looking at you and making the first move, do you feel like, looking back at it now, that maybe you're just an easier target?
No, because I wasn't going towards any guy that would give me eye contact. Like, it's not like it's not like guys didn't approach me. It's not like guys weren't interested in me. I never thought someone that looked like that would be interested in me at that time. So
when it comes to a relationship, do you know exactly what you want now out of a relationship?
That's a very difficult question to answer. And my straight answer would be no, because I think I'm always evolving. And so like the people that I'm meeting are always going to be, there's always going to be new people coming into my life. And as far as like a partnership, I'm more secure in knowing like what my non-negotiables are, or what I ideally would like in a partner or in my future or a future family. But then again, I try not to get stuck on any vision or anything, because like we were talking about earlier, you can never control another person. And as much as like I know what I want, there's always going to be another person involved who's not me, who's going to also be evolving, and things could change and life progresses and everything. So I try as hard and as best as I can to be open-minded, to like live in the moment, and then just know what my non-negotiables are towards like being in a relationship with someone.
So when in a relationship, do you have any fears? Like, do you fear that maybe you're just here as a placeholder till something better comes along?
Yeah, so it's something that like is a struggle, right? Because like saying, do you know what you want in a partnership? Yes, if I could say like, I would want this and I know it's not going to change. Of course, I would say, I would write my list and I would say like, this is exactly what I want. But because I'm not the only one involved in that relationship, I can't control that other person. I can't decide if this relationship is going to last 10 years or the rest of my life. I have to be secure in myself to know that I have to be okay with myself first and foremost, and then also live in the moment and make the best of the people that I have in my life now. And of course, hope that for me, I would love a lifelong partner. But if that's not the case, it's not just the other person or me deciding something else. It could be like death and one of us becomes a widow like earlier, or something, that we don't have control over. So you just have to make the best out of life. Like, you can have a plan or you can have like desires or what you want, but ultimately it's like we could only control so much.
So now that you've had experience being in relationships, do you feel like, the minute you're in a relationship, it's like, okay, we're going to immediately be best friends. We're going to always be motivated to go to the gym. We're going to be always motivated to go out to my friend's birthday and like take pictures with her kids. We're going to always want to go on hikes. And let's say he's not into these things all the time, but yet you still try to force him to do these things because let's say he's at work and you're just like, I'm bored, and you're just texting him. Do you feel like sometimes when you're bored, you just text that person and you don't realize maybe you're agitating that person?
I thankfully have already established, from like not being in a relationship most of my adult life, I've already established enough of a routine to keep myself busy. So I rarely find myself like needing attention. Yes, I'm a woman, and yes, I like, to be talked to and to get those text messages and all that stuff, but I'm not like waiting by my phone to, for his next call or his next text. I keep myself pretty busy. And so I'm not reliant in a relationship for that. But I will say it is a struggle now being an adult, like having my own priorities. If those don't align, I'm learning to be more open-minded to like accepting the person if I'm choosing to get to know them or date them, to accepting them just for who they are. Because again, like I can't hold my expectations and my standards on someone else, because again, coming from my past, I've tried the bodybuilding gym rat type of guy and multiple times, in multiple relationships, and that didn't go well. So now I'm like trying to be open to someone who maybe doesn't fit that mold. And then again, I can't make anyone do anything.
So let's say another bodybuilding guy comes into your life. Are you just going to bring that extra baggage from the past relationship into the new relationship?
That's a tough one, because I've given that type of, stereotypical guy, like a lot of opportunities. I've been in several relationships with like that type of guy. And
but that's,
I don't know.
That's your type of lifestyle though, right? That's why it fits?
In that way, yes. But I give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, just because they look like this doesn't mean that they're going to be the same as the other one, right? But I haven't found one, maybe because they weren't my person. I haven't found one that, like, wasn't a douchebag, basically, with no disrespect. But, like, yeah, so maybe for me, that type of person, I haven't found that to be, type of person for me. So I don't know. I'm not going to say all of them are douchebags, but it is a stereotypical thing. And it's like, it is, when you look a certain way, you get treated a certain way and you expect certain things. So it's like, it's also part of like what society is the norm,
Yeah, because most times it's like maybe you're in control of your algorithm and you're in control of your own mind, but the person you're with isn't. It's like immediately they look at their phone and they get a DM. Oh, fuck, pussy, I gotta go. And you're just like, where are you going? Oh, my grandma's. Like, why you gotta be all wish-washy? Just, get out of it. But I know exactly what you mean. It's just like, if you can't be honest with somebody, you can't be honest with yourself.
Yeah, and we live in a world where looks are used for like sexual advantages, right? Like, you look a certain way, you're gonna get more attention, you're gonna get more opportunity, you're gonna get like more benefits and all these things.
Do you know how to control your jealousy when it gets out of control?
I think so, and I do my best to. And it's all about just knowing how to be secure in yourself and knowing what you want in life and what you're willing to deal with and not, because is jealousy healthy? Is a little bit of jealousy healthy? Like, everyone has a different perspective on this, and ultimately it depends on like the type of relationship that you have, but ultimately the relationship that you have with yourself. Like, how confident are you in you as your own person and in the relationship? And again, you're never going to have ultimate control over someone. So that's an uncontrollable, like dynamic in the relationship where it's like You just have to trust.
So you brought up a good point. You said the relationship with yourself. Have you developed a good relationship with yourself now that you've had your heart broken a few times?
I think so. And I want to believe that I'm continuously evolving and growing because, I don't get things right still. And I know I still have a lot to learn. But I feel in a more stable place. And I feel in a more healthy place in regards to like what I'm willing to accept or not, and like what boundaries I know I need to have and what is worth it to me versus what I can easily walk away from now that before maybe was a struggle for me.
So you say easily walk away. So it was difficult for you to walk away from previous relationships?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Does that have a lot to do with like your ethnicity and your height?
Is that a real question?
A little bit of like a joke, but yeah. So how tall are you again?
I'm 5'1".
Okay.
And I'm a Latina.
So where's your Latina background from?
Both my parents are from Mexico, Jalisco. But I'm curious why you ask that. Is it because why?
I mean, I always just find it funny, like these little stereotypes, but I've had some, experience myself where you're like, oh, okay, here's some toxic relationships on my own part. And you're like, oh, yeah, she wears kid-sized shoes. I should have saw that. But I mean, it obviously has nothing to do with it being in a reality, but it is kind of funny where you're like, these little dumb memes kind of come into play where you're like, oh, well, you chose to stay. Yeah, I chose. So in the way, it's just like, like you said earlier, you fall in love with someone's potential. You tend to think that, oh, I can like fix things. It'll work out in the end. And then the more you put into it, the more deeper you get in it. It's like you keep digging a hole. Eventually you'll get out. But in reality, it's like you're just kind of so far down. There's no way out. And then you're just stuck. It's also kind of the same thing that's called like a bag holder. You're just a bag of rotten goods. You're just like, oh, yeah, look, it's just an empty bag at the end of the day. And you're like, great. Now I'm just here looking stupid, feeling stupid, but you had the ability to walk away, but you didn't.
I don't have obviously, yes, it'd be nice to be taller, but a lot of guys like short girls, so I don't have an issue with that. And then as far as being Latina, growing up, I did kind of feel inferior because of it, but nowadays I feel like we live in an awareness where I've also learned to embrace it and know that it's actually a blessing, and I should hold on to my heritage and hold my ethnicity in a, being proud of it and knowing what I have to offer because of it. So now it's something that I use to my advantage instead of like feeling inferior because of it. So yeah, those two things will never hold me in a toxic relationship because I don't have a problem with being as short as I am. Someone will like me for my height. And then I think Latinas are beautiful and spicy and have a lot to offer. So I'm confident.
Have you ever hit anyone with the chancla?
Yeah, I told
joking,
no. But it's funny because I don't know if you came across this reel that was circulating about like the wives would throw the chancla, and try to knock off the cup off the husband's head.
I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I should definitely start practicing. I have thought about it, but I haven't practiced. But I'm more than willing if anyone will let me try.
So speaking of Jalisco, have you ever been?
I have. Yeah.
Do you remember your first time going to Mexico and that experience?
I don't remember the very first time because I think I was probably like 5 or 6. I just have pictures of it. I do remember going after that when I was like a teenager I think I was like still in high school. And I do remember liking it. It's very, both of my parents are from a ranchito, little, town with just a few houses, a little bit of people. But like what everyone loves most about there is, the nature, the quiet, the food. And yeah, it's just nice to have a different pace of life out there.
So what was the difference between there and here? Like, do you feel like you can tell the difference in culture?
Yes. So everyone over there is more lax. Like, even if you cross, like, I've been going to Mexicali recently a lot. And even just crossing the border out there, like, it's a different vibe. People aren't as rushed as here. They're more laxed in the way that they do things. And, yeah, it must be something about California.
So when you speak to them in Spanish, are they very welcoming to you? Or do they laugh at you the way you speak?
Actually, Spanish is my first language, so I think I'm fluent enough. They do tell me a lot of times that, like, I have an accent. They can tell that, I don't know, maybe I also speak English. But most of the time they don't laugh at me. I think I can hold.
Okay, at least so they come to you with like welcome arms.
Yeah, everyone's friendly out there, and most places actually that I've visited outside of the country are very friendly. If you've traveled anywhere abroad, everyone tends to be like a lot more welcoming and friendlier than here.
I wouldn't say everywhere, but yeah, pretty much.
So where have they not?
Well, first place, I don't want to like throw it out the window, but France.
Oh, okay.
Paris, particularly, it's like, no, we don't speak English. Okay, let me start using my Google Translator and trying to speak French. Toutes les, no, it is better if you speak English. What do you want from me? Wow. And I was like, wow, like right in your face. But that's probably like one experience. I mean, I could probably go to some other countries, but at the same time, like, I haven't had too many bad experiences. I mean, Puerto Rico a little bit here and there, but I was kind of stuck there when Trump was throwing paper towels. So they weren't really happy with Americans being there at that moment. So they weren't really mad at me personally. It's just like, oh, you don't speak Spanish. And it's just like, I speak a little bit of Spanish, but like they say coge as to grab. And I'm like, that means to fuck. Like, they're like, ay coño, coge mi amiga, coge ahí. And I'm like... And then just kept getting more frustrated. I'm like, all right, Google Translator's not helping me.
Oh my
What is
goodness.
coño? What is puñeta? And like, it's not coming up. I'm like, all right, well, I'm just stuck here.
Wow, no, yeah, I can see how that can be frustrating.
But here and there, yeah, I mean, for the most part, you know, I've been a bunch of parts of Mexico, so it's like I felt like almost every experience I've had in Mexico has been a good experience. You know, different parts. What part of Jalisco were you guys from?
Tonaya.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you still go frequently, or is it just...
My dad retired a few years ago, and he's been mostly living out there. And I've been wanting to go, especially because of that. He's been back and forth, but I feel like even now more so I can appreciate, you know, my heritage and just like what is out there and learn from being able to see how life is over there still. I haven't had the chance to go, but hopefully this upcoming year I will. I plan on.
So let's go back to relationships. Let's go bring up a topic, closure. Do you feel like you've gotten all the closure you wanted, or is there still something you feel like you need closure on?
Closure has been very difficult for me to accept because in a lot of these past relationships, I haven't gotten the closure that I needed or that I wanted. And it's been tough. Like, it's an inner battle that you have to like face because, you know, eventually you come to terms with the fact that like, okay, you're never going to get the response or the conversation or the whatever it is that you thought that person should have at least granted you, you know, as a final like closure of the relationship. And you're left with like the what ifs, and you're left with unknowns and just all these unanswered questions that you still have and everything. And so it's something that like has taken me time to come to terms with. And to know that, like, as much as you want to know something or understand something or understand the person or whatever, like, sometimes you're not going to have what you need or what you want. And, like, you have to move on. You have to make the best out of whatever was given to you and, like, move on. You can't get stuck in, like, the unknown. with anything.
So how do you move on, like personally? Like how do you, Christina, move on?
Yes. For me, having a routine and having like certain things that I'm working towards has been so healing and part of my like self-development and just healing journey. You know, anytime that I refocused, let's just say I refocused for a relationship. So I wanted to invest in getting to know this person. I wanted to see where this would go and everything. So I, you know, start trimming different time slots for different areas of my life. So like maybe less time for self-care or less time for family or less time at the gym because I'm investing in, you know, being with this person and getting to know them. And then if things don't work out, what works for me to move on is like refocusing that time to, like I said, you know, I've already kind of developed my own lifestyle, my own way of doing things where I keep myself busy. I have a routine. I have certain things that I make sure I do for myself or for the type of lifestyle that I like to live. So like redirecting that time into the whatever it is, the gym time, self-care, the being with my family, or, you know, picking up a new hobby or getting back into like whatever I was researching. Redirecting that time into those things just makes you move on, because it's like you don't have just sit there and like think about it all day.
So currently right now, like when it comes to exercising, what kind of routine do you have? Are you like lifting a lot of heavy weights? Are you doing a lot of cardio?
So in this season of my life, I've tried to not be so hardcore with like building muscle. I want to prioritize my nutrition more than anything. So most importantly, I'm trying to focus on what I'm eating and making sure that I'm hitting like as much of my nutrient goals as I can. And then I used to lift like 5 to 6 times a week, which to me was like a big deal. And like, you don't miss, like I will not miss. And if I miss, I'm feeling bad about it. But now I'm in a season of my life where, you know, my goal is 3 to 4. And that should be more like long-term, easier to maintain. Like, let's just say I'm, you know, busier building my relationships, I can squeeze in 3 to 4 times instead of 5 to 6. Or I'm trying to just get used to a more long-term routine of what's more practical moving forward. So 3 to 4 is my goal. And then last year I started incorporating a full body workout, which before I would break it between like upper and lower. Now it's full body, and I've really been enjoying that. It's still strength training that I do mostly. I got a puppy last year, which made me start doing a little bit more, you know, cardio steps. Like I try to hit a 10K goal, a step goal a day, because just, you know, I have to like be walking more because I have a puppy, and so she requires more being outdoors, more walking. So that's what I've been doing as far as cardio, but nothing too structured.
I just got a puppy like 3 weeks ago. I drove up to my house and this dog jumped up on my leg, and I kind of had a dog ever since now.
For real?
Yeah. So the puppy's like 4 months. She just lost her first baby tooth like a couple days ago.
Oh!
Yeah. At first I was like, I don't want to keep this dog, but then we just kind of kept the dog. Yeah, she didn't have a chip. She didn't have a collar. I don't know if they left her out, but it looks like she was out for a few days. So I don't know exactly where she came from, but like I just parked my car. I got out and I like saw it on my foot and I freaked out and I kicked this thing off me. And then she like ran off, and then she came back and I opened the door and she kind of just went in the house and was just like super excited.
Aw,
So,
that's so cute.
Kind of had a dog since.
What kind of dog?
I don't know. Let me see. It's like a white type of... I forget the name of the breed.
Free dog? How cute. Unexpected. Oh, it's so cute.
Yeah, so she's a girl.
Wait, how old is it now? Or
So right now she's 4 months is what the vet told us.
What?
Coming up on, I guess, 5 and...
She kind of looks like Ginger, like my dog.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Well, how lucky is she? What's her name?
I haven't really thought about it yet. I think we're going to call her like Nilla, like vanilla.
Oh, that's
I
cute. I like that.
So maybe that's what her name's going to be.
Have you had a dog before her?
We did. So we had a dog. He was a wiener / chihuahua. He lived to be about 8. And then we had these 2 dogs that were brother and sister. I can't remember the exact breed, but one of them lived to be 14. And the other one we just put to sleep in October. She was 16.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wow.
So, yeah.
That's a long time.
So when we got this dog, we're just like, oh, I don't want another dog for a while. And then out of nowhere, it's just like, all right, well, I guess we got a puppy. So, yeah, she keeps taking dumps all over the carpet. We're just having a potty trainer.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, go outside. All right, she ran through the fence. All right, now we got to chase the dog. But
oh my goodness.
So definitely a handful, but trying to go to sleep. This dog just like putting her head in my ribs, and it's like, all right, now I got to sleep with this dog. So, but yeah, now I got a dog. So
that's sweet.
So now I got more
It chose you.
Yeah, pretty much.
It came to the right people.
Pretty much. So I guess there's that part,
Yeah.
So your dog, how did you get your dog?
Well, I had been wanting a dog for a long time, and I just, for different reasons, I just wouldn't prioritize getting one. After my last heartbreak, which hit me, I mean, with every new heartbreak, I don't know, part of it is a little easier, but then part of it is a little worse, because you're like, how many more of these do I need to do I need to have, So the last one was kind of difficult for me for a lot of reasons, and so I felt just very emotionally drained from it, and just overall like kind of hopeless with like life, and like how is nothing working out for me, especially, in my relationships.
So were you feeling like a victim at that point?
I was feeling hopeless and emotionally drained, yes. And yes, sure, you could say part of me felt, yes, like a victim, because it's like, gosh, I don't think I'm the reason for all this failure in relationships. Like, I'm sure I'm not perfect, but like, it at least would be nice to have like someone stick around at least enough to like build like, let's just say like at least a longer term relationship, not all this like turnover of like guys just sucking one after the other, So
what sucked about that relationship? How did that one end?
In the worst way possible. I want to say out of all of them. He ghosted.
He ghosted?
Yes.
So he didn't even break up with you? He just stopped talking to you?
Yes.
So you can't get any closure, right? Because he blocked you?
He didn't block me.
He didn't block you? Okay.
He just was like not responding anymore.
Okay. That's probably a form of gaslighting. He might have been doing something shady and didn't want to confront it. Or did you piss him off?
No, but I mean, in regards to that relationship, it was more of an open relationship. We just kind of wanted to see where it was going. Not in all ways. It was just like there was not a lot of pressure to like, it has to fit a certain
commitment with an exit route, kind of. There was no label on it.
Yeah, we were trying to see where things would go with like no expectation. The one thing that I asked for was communication. Regardless of like, I'm not like tying you down. I'm not holding you to like any expectation or standards in regards to what you want with me. Just communicate. So that's all I asked for. And that's exactly what he couldn't do or didn't do.
And how long ago was that? A couple years ago?
This was last year. I want to say last February.
And this was the worst heartbreak you've had, you said?
Yes, only because of the way that it ended.
Did it end right, like before Valentine's Day?
Things got rocky before Valentine's Day, but we were still in contact and communication. But he ghosted me like right before my birthday, which is in March.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And then I got Ginger in April. So I wasn't looking for a puppy. I wanted one. And just emotionally, I just felt like, shoot, do I go to therapy? Like, how do I, like rebuild myself? And how do I like move forward in like my healing? Not just to be like at a good place, but like to be progressing. And so I told a new roommate of mine that I wanted a puppy. And then the next day we had gone out to the swap meet. And he sees a puppy under someone's stroller and he's like, oh, look how cute that dog is. And so he's like, let's go ask her about it. And so we go and we ask the lady about the puppy and she's like, oh, I just bought it for my 3-year-old son. The lady's selling them around here. Anyway, so we got in contact with the lady. I go and see the puppies, and then Ginger ended up choosing me because the lady wanted me to take the other sister. And it just gets funnier. I'm sorry, I have to say this. Because I tend to like people with red hair. So the last guy I dated had a red beard. And Ginger, when I got her... Ginger, when I got her, was orange. So I'm carrying her away and my roommate's like, what are you gonna name her? And I'm like, I don't know. And then I look at her and I'm like, great, she's a freaking Ginger. So I felt like God literally sent her to me as like a heartbreak healer or like therapy for me. And she's been she's definitely helped me in my healing journey. And it's all, like I take full responsibility for my own healing and my own evolution with that. But obviously people can help, therapy can help, dogs help. And so I finally got a dog and it helped me in a lot of different areas.
All right. So tell me a little bit about your journey right now. You're trying to get into sales?
Well, yes. Last year I bought a course to learn the skill set of sales because I have been hearing and also from experience learning that sales skills are good for anyone to have, and they can be applied in any area of life and any field that you go into. So I want to take advantage of learning that skill set and specifically to be able to apply it to promote high ticket courses and work in that field with it and see where it goes. So,
have you ever had a sales job before?
I haven't.
Okay. So is that something you're interested in doing now? Or are you just trying to do something on your own?
I want to learn. So I want to learn the skill set, and then I want to learn more from experience by applying it to, like someone who already built something, right? Because I haven't built my own branding in the way that I want to. So I can partner with someone who already has a brand, already has a course that they're selling. And so I could learn more of the experience of selling through working with them until eventually I can branch out on my own. That's my hope and plan.
Okay, cool. So what kind of stuff are you trying to sell on your own? Like, what are you trying to make out of your own brand?
Well, I would love to make courses since we were talking about that before. Because of my own journey and how I feel like I've been able to pick and grab and learn from all these different people, and it's made me who I am today. I feel like I can share that knowledge and my experiences and everything in different areas with people through courses, and just me being like a point of contact also can just be useful for people, and like redirecting them. And if I can't help them or solve their issue, maybe redirecting them towards the people or the information that will support them on their own journey. So I always say, like, I was inspired to inspire, and I hope to inspire other people to also duplicate and inspire others, because everyone has something that they can offer someone. Not everyone is going to need it, but there are those people that really will need it. And I think about like the person that I was before when I felt lost or when I felt insecure, and it was all those people that I came across, you know, through a blog or through social media or whatever, that I clinged onto in a way for like hope or for information or because I was learning certain things from them, and they mattered to me and I appreciate. And some of those people I'll never get to maybe physically meet in person, but I'm so thankful because they played a big part in my life without them even realizing. They were just living their lives. They were just sharing what they know or what they were learning, and I was able to learn from it and apply it and, you know, evolve with that. And maybe I still kept it, or maybe it served me for that time and I no longer live by it, but it helped me is my point. And so I feel like everyone always has something they could offer the world. And the good thing about like social media now is we're not limited to, you know, our point of contact with like the people that we are in our immediate lives. Like anyone from anywhere across the world can be seeing and learning from you by posting it online. And I always encourage, especially like my close family and friends, like share more. I know it's a vulnerable place to be in, to share your personal life and, you know, the things that matter deeply to you, but you don't know how much, even if it's just encouragement or it's like you being vulnerable and sharing a mistake that you made, you know, someone out there might be able to relate and won't feel as bad or learn from something that you share so that they don't make that same mistake. So it's worth it to me. If someone out there needs it, like it's worth it for me to feel vulnerable and exposed. And I have learned from so many, so I want to like also give back in that way.
So speaking of social media, do you feel like social media has like monetized people's relationships?
I think social media tries to monetize anything that is able to be monetized. And part of me says, why not? Like, you know, anyone should be able to make a living out of anything that they want to expose out into the world. And so if celebrities can monetize their life just because they're well known, like we should have the opportunity to monetize any area of our life that we want. Yeah, I'm sure it does. And I don't have a problem with it if that's what the person chooses to do.
Yeah, I feel like our parents' generation was keeping up with the Joneses, but now our generation is like keeping up with the Kardashians because everyone's got a phone and everyone's constantly posting their own reality show on their phone. So yeah, it makes more sense. Sometimes I kind of look at my stuff and I'm like, oh, okay, my life looks a little more curated online. And in reality, you know, it's just, I feel like we're all kind of ordinary. We just kind of have things to do. We have duties. It's like we have our obligations. But then sometimes I feel like a lot of people just, they look at you for your ups, and then, you know, when you're down, you're like, all right, well, can someone help? And you're just like, I think a lot of people are afraid of asking for help. And I feel like that's where, I think, you know, being alone, isolated somewhere like in the woods, like if you go to Joshua Tree, that's one thing, but being alone in a room full of people is another thing. It's like, imagine having all these digital friends on your phone, but nobody to call when you're thinking of suicide. And I feel like, I don't want to say social media does that, but definitely I feel like a lot of people can get trapped into that little spiral and that downfall where you're like, oh, okay, like, you know, I'm down on my luck, but I don't know who to ask, and where do I go from here? Have you ever battled with something like that?
Yeah, I think it's common for people nowadays to feel alone, even though we can be connected so easily through the internet. But at the same time, I know social media is known for like, oh, people just post like their ups. But there are some that post, you know, like the struggle. And people bash on content creators who post their reels of them crying and all that stuff, right? Because it's like, what are you asking for? Pity or like, you know, like victimhood, or like, you know, why post yourself like in those states? But it's like sometimes people like to see that or can learn from whatever they're going through and things like that. So my point is, anyone is welcome to post anything. If we say, oh, you know, my life looks a certain way because I'm only posting my highs. Well, you have the opportunity to also post your lows. And also, like, I love how more and more people are starting to post like the day in the life, or like, you know, what they actually do. Like you said, you know, but I actually do these things during my day to day. Like, that can be posted too. And that's also something that anyone can learn from, and also find very intriguing and fun to watch, because like no one is going to be able to follow you throughout your day. Everyone's living their own life, but if you make it into a reel, they can see like more of an example of what a typical day in, you know, your life and my life looks like. So I just always encourage everyone to share as much as you're able to, you know, be open to sharing, not just the good stuff. But obviously we all are more inclined to do that. I'm curious how you got started in like doing what you do and filming and all that.
Okay. Well, I mean, how I got started, at least from like creating video stuff, was like my senior year of high school. Somebody owed me some money. And then they said, hey, you should get this camera. I'll give you a T2i. It's a Canon T2i. And all I remember was there was a teacher who told me, like, guys, like, I'm not some guy. I went to film school, and like this camera, this stuff looks like the movies. And I was like, oh, one day I'll get that camera, but I don't know. It was like $700 or something. But then the guy who owed me money, he worked at an electronics store. He's like, oh, I can get it for a lot cheaper. Like, how about I just get you this camera? And I got this camera, and then it kind of sat there for the first month. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I got this camera, but like, I don't know, like YouTube was barely a thing, because this was about 2009, give or take. So YouTube was barely in its infancy. We knew we can upload something, but we just didn't really know what to upload. And there was one of our friends, and then after high school, probably like a few months after high school, one of our friends went to jail, and then he got out. He only went there for like a month, but when he got out, we threw him a party. And I was like, okay, cool. Look, where are we going to throw this party at? And it was at a hotel. And it was a 2-story hotel. And in my mind, I'm like, I can make this look like MTV Cribs. And so I took pictures and I did videos. And I took pictures and videos at a lot of other parties after that. So it kind of turned into that. And then I started an internship in Hollywood like about a year later. And that's kind of where I learned how to do it professionally, because I worked at a radio TV station. So it was like a lot of big celebrities were kind of there. That was definitely a game changer, because like I learned how to use professional equipment, but it wasn't a professional environment. I don't want to say the name of the production, but it was a non-paid internship, and there was a lot of people that were working 40, 50 hours a week non-paid. So there's these things called labor laws, where it's like if you break them, your production kind of gets shut down, which kind of what happened to that production. It got shut down later on after I left.
What? I did an internship where I was working like 60 plus hours a week, and that place is still running.
So there's a lot of places that do that. So when I took this class at UCLA Extension, they were like, yeah, you should go take this lady's class. She literally told us everything that we were doing was illegal, but like she didn't see what we were doing, but in class we're learning this. And I'm just like looking, like the person right next to me who was like above me, who's like recruited me to go here, he's just like, I think he went through all these things and didn't want to tell me. He wanted to make it seem like, oh yeah, I got hired on the spot, but I kind of found out through like some of his older siblings and his friends that he did do a 2-year internship non-paid for like a long time, and he was still getting the short end of the stick. He wasn't getting paid the amount of money that he was telling everybody. But that's a lot of people in Hollywood. You know, they don't want to tell you what's going on behind closed doors. They're just trying to show you the glitz and glam of the things. But in reality, it's like some of these people are battling their finances. They're battling a drug addiction. They're battling just trying to fit in. And it's like trends change, algorithms change. You know, the trend is your friend to the bend at the end. Like once it's over, it's over. Like every good party comes to an end. Every song ends. You know, like in the dance scene, like the song is over. The song is over. Like go find another partner. Unfortunately, some people, they don't know how to battle that. It's just like the biggest battle you have to deal with is the one with yourself, and just walk away. And especially myself, you know, it's just like, you know, when you said earlier, it's like, oh, I want to keep going at this because this relationship will eventually go for the better, people, they follow that. They're like, oh, I want to, this is my California dream. I want to become a director, a dancer, model, actor, whatever it is. Like, this is the first step. But in reality, there's a lot of abuse there. There's a lot of weird stuff that you don't see. There's a lot of people like paying for the job that they're supposed to go to. And I'm just like, dude, you're not supposed to pay anybody for their production. And two, it's just like, you can't trust everything you see because even salt looks like sugar. So just because you see good content, just because you see a lot of people going somewhere, just know behind closed doors that most times, like, it's either you're at a profit or a loss. A lot of times they're at a loss. They're running a lot of things on credit. They're using borrowed money. They're using someone else's money. There's a lot of fraud that goes on. So it's just at the end of the day, it's just like, you always have to ask yourself, do you remember who you were before everybody told you who to be? Because I've definitely seen people start up making a certain kind of content about like where they came from, like the streets or whatever it is. Like, they're coming like they're like this fake tough guy persona. And the next thing you know, we're doing a commercial for like fidget spinners or Pokemon Go, or someone has an Amazon affiliate link for a microwave or like a cup of noodles. And you're like, what the fuck is this, man? Like, this is not what you originally started with. And then your audience is kind of just like going from a bunch of dudes that you thought you were trying to help to a bunch of kids who just see followers. And then you just look at the numbers. But there's a difference between engaged users and revenue. And I've definitely seen a lot of people confuse engaged users with revenue, thinking that, oh, my social media platform is worth millions of dollars because I have, millions of followers. But in reality, it's like the higher the high, the harder the fall. Every junkie has their fix. Like, you have a delusional effect where, if you put something for sale on your website and you have 1 million followers and not one person buys it, that's a huge heartbreak. Like, that's your true value, whether you like it or not. Because the marketplace will always expose your true value in life, whether you like it or not. And I think that's what happens with some people with their social media accounts, where they get so in tune with their followers when they kind of forget, where it's like, okay, can you make a living off this? Most of the times they can't. And that's the scary part about it, is like a lot of times people think, oh, you've got a lot of followers. And in reality, I don't think true power comes from how much money you have. It comes from the ability of making people move. So like, if you have no money and you can make people do what you want just at the snap of a finger, that's going to be worth a lot more than money. Because you can, like, if you have the ability to raise capital, that's going to help your business. If you can't raise capital in your business and you're just trying to do everything on your own, that's a big uphill struggle. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of get the misconception, where they have to fund their own projects, which necessarily isn't always true. You can go and GoFundMe, you can do a Kickstarter. You have all these opportunities, but a lot of people just don't know how to start that, and they're afraid of taking the first step. So in their mind, I think they think of, okay, if I tried a little bit for this 1 week, therefore I put a lot of effort, therefore it will come true. And 9 out of 10 times, I don't think that really works out, because I think what happens is a lot of people just misunderstand how much effort it takes to get from where they are to where they want to be, and it's a lot of work. I've definitely been part of a lot of projects that have taken off, that have made a lot of money, and I've gotten screwed out of them because I didn't do things correctly. But you live and learn from experiences, It's like, it's just money at the end of the day. I mean, it sucks that you're like, oh, I could have like had this, I could have, should have, would have done these things. I've had opportunities to buy Bitcoin back in 2010, 2011, where it's like, you could have had hundreds of millions of dollars, but missed that opportunity. I had some more opportunities and missed those too. But at the end of the day, there's always going to be another day to trade. There's always going to be a new market. There's always going to be another Bitcoin. I don't think Bitcoin is completely like taken off yet, but I don't want to take this into a cryptocurrency course kind of, rant. But at the end of the day, it's just like, I think a lot of people get too caught up looking back rather than looking forward, where they're just always talking about the good old days, about when they had it and who they used to be. And instead of talking about what they're doing, they're talking about what they did, because in reality, they're afraid that they're not going to be able to accomplish those goals again. It's like, yeah, I remember back in the day when I was, like that Married with Children TV show, Ted Bundy all the time. Al Bundy, my bad. Ted Bundy's a serial killer. But Al Bundy, he's always talking about high school, like, yeah, when I was this, that, and that. There's definitely a lot of people that are stuck in that rut. And I feel like I kind of always wanted to make like a podcast like this, not so much to, just talk, but to show people that, hey, I like a good story when somebody who fucks up and comes back from that. Like, that's a good story. Like, hey, I kind of want to make this for people who do mess up, that you can kind of get out of that rut. So I think what happens is a lot of people, they compare their life to somebody who has more instead of somebody who has less. So I think once I was able to travel a lot, I didn't leave the country till I was 25. First, I went to Guanajuato, Mexico first. That was the first place I went to at 25. And going to Mexico for the first time, it didn't really faze me as much as I thought it was, because going to Guanajuato and León, it kind of felt like, you know, there was still sidewalks, there was streets, there was lights, there was a carnival. I'm like, all right, you know, like it just looked a little poor, but it didn't look like what I thought it was. And then I went to Cuba. When I went to Cuba, that's when I saw like real poverty, like it was in your face. You know, there's nothing you can do about this. Like you're just stuck here, and it's just, this is their reality. It's like I remember going to this rum factory, and this one hit me the most. You know, when you go to LA, like you see bars on the windows? Mm-hmm. Well, we had to go to this rum factory, and it, you know, there's this woman smashing berries with her feet or whatever it was, and she looked miserable. She was like, looked like she was elderly, like probably over 60, and she just looked miserable. And I'm looking at the windows, and there's bars on the windows, and I don't think those bars were there to keep people from breaking in. I think they were there to prevent these people from getting out. And
what?
Yeah, I mean, that's just my theory, right? I'm not saying it was for sure.
Right.
But I mean, you can kind of read the writing in the walls, where it's just like these people obviously weren't happy. Like it's just, this is forced labor here. And, you know, we're going to a cigar farm, and they're like, yeah, the government takes poquito money, poquito. Yeah, and then they're both looking at each other, yeah, poquito. Like, you know, they're probably taking everything. Like they don't have anything to live off of. And when I came back here, it made me realize, like, you know, I don't want to be one of these people who die of obesity when people are dying of starvation. You know, I at least owe it to those people where it's like, you know, you grew up here in a first world country where you have the ability to read, you have the ability to teach yourself, you can get out of a shitty situation. And if you run out of money, you can file bankruptcy. I'm not saying go out there and go do that. It's not a fun thing to do. But, you know, like you can't really do that in all these other countries. You can't, these certain opportunities where a lot of people are upset here, which I get, you know, for a first world country, I think we can do better. But at the same time, there are still opportunities here that you can make something in your life. Yeah. You know, even during, it's not so much what you do when times are good, it's what you do when times are bad and how you get out of a bad situation. And I think a lot of times people are just so focused on their bad situation that they don't really realize, like, hey, I can get out of this. So I think the reason why I kind of started this podcast was more to show people, like, hey, you know, like, everyone's going through something. Everyone's battling something. Don't think you're the only one out there. But at the end of the day, I think we should all kind of try to network with each other and work with each other instead of working against each other. Yeah. Because I feel like when you go on these social media platforms, it looks like there's just a lot of hate. And a lot of people just, that's all they've ever seen. That's all they've ever watched. It's like, what do you expect? It's like everything is just constantly like bashing, and there's just trolls everywhere. Why would you want to be engaged in this kind of like lifestyle? Like, it's easy to just, all right, you know, I'm just going to delete my Instagram and not be a part of it. But a lot of people are their own worst enemy, or they're just like, I'm going to be engaged on it. I'm going to keep looking at things that piss me off. I'm going to keep looking at these things that are frustrating me. It's just like, dude, just turn off the phone, walk away. But, you know, at the same time, it's like these algorithms kind of come into play. It's like your algorithm isn't good or it's bad. It's what you engage with. But sometimes these things, they know what's going to piss you off, and it likes to piss you off because it wants to keep you engaged. It doesn't care about people. It cares about profits. It cares about selling things. So it's just like, what do you engage with and what do you buy? And the more things that you buy, your algorithm is going to figure out what you like to buy. So just be conscious and know that, hey, I want to be known more for this type of person. Because I think what happens is a lot of people, they get too caught up in asking themselves, like you said earlier, the kind of guy you're attracted to, or like these muscular kind of guys. It's just, don't ask yourself what kind of people you're attracted to. Ask yourself what kind of person do you want to be, and focus on being that person. Because being alone is one thing, but feeling alone is a different thing. So I think you have to kind of focus on getting out of your own head, because a lot of times people get trapped in their own thoughts and they create problems that aren't even there.
True. Do you think life is about getting to a destination, or it's about the journey?
Life is a destination, not a journey. I've heard that before.
What do you think is more important?
I feel like what's really more important is, like, we're not here to be happy. A lot of times people think that human beings are here to be happy, but I think human beings, I hate to say it, but like, we're not nice creatures. You know, I mean, we can be nice. We can choose to be nice. We tend to think that we matter, but I don't think that we actually do. We might matter to each other. But 100 years from now, we're all going to be gone. We're all going to be talked about in past tense.
Or not at all.
I know, exactly. Not at all. Like, but I feel like overall, I think at least my goal is to like leave an imprint when I leave. Like, hey, this is what this person did. This is who this person was. And, you know, if there's nothing interested in your story, did you really do a good job of what you wanted to do while you had time on this planet? I feel like a lot of times we always focus on being happy. I don't think we're supposed to be happy. I think what we're supposed to do is work and struggle and be the best version of ourselves we could possibly be. That's just my theory. But I mean, if you want to be happy and, sit there and kind of do nothing and live life, you go to like, especially spending time in Europe where most people, they don't really focus on their career. They just kind of focus on their household. There's like, hey, you have a family at home, go home, like spend time with your kids, spend time with your wife. Like, why are you stressed out? And you come over here, it's like, the things you own eventually own you. Like your car breaks down, you're going to go spend as much money you can to fix your car. Your house is fucked up. Like, all right, we got to fix this house. Like, all right, if I can't hire a plumber, I'm going to start going on YouTube trying to find out how to be a plumber. And then next thing you know, you break something and then you got to pay twice as much because you got to pay somebody to fix it. And now you got to pay somebody to do it right.
Oh, so do you think people in Europe have it right?
I don't want to say that they're wrong and I don't want to say that they're right. I don't want to say that we're right and they're wrong. I just feel like they're different. Their priorities are a lot different. Being there, like their sense of urgency was very drastically low compared to ours. If you ask them to do an 8-hour shift, I don't think that that's in their nature. I think for us, it's kind of just expected all the time. It's like, hey, look, you did 8 hours. Can you do 10? Can you work overtime? Can you work overtime non-paid? Because we're trying to put profits before people. And you're just like, all right, do the people I work for actually care about me? And no, I don't think they do, and I don't think they should. As sad as that sounds, then you have like these unions. They definitely work for them, and if you want to be part of a union, I feel like you have a choice to be part of that union. If you don't, then I feel like you don't have to. But that's your personal choice. I do understand that these publicly traded companies have to make money. I do understand that they have shareholders to abide to. And at the same time, like you are as strong as your weakest link. And you got to focus on the people who help you. And I do believe that, you should help the people that build you. But I do understand when it comes to these companies, they're like, no, we don't really care about people. We need to care more about profits. It's all about staying relevant. So there's got to be a balance between the two where it's like, hey, like let's say you work at Amazon and you're working for minimum wage, but Amazon is just constantly making, profits every single month. They're hitting a new quota. They're doing certain things, and sometimes they don't. But let's just say, like in theory, all they're doing is going to the moon. Their stock, and you're just here wondering, like, hey, I'm in this warehouse. Like, I can barely afford to make a living here in Southern California. Like, I can't have a kid. I can't really do anything. Like, I'm working 40 plus hours a week, and for what? Like to live at my parents' house? And I feel like it's also not right. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you got to find another job somewhere else. But then I think a lot of people feel hopeless, like, well, where else am I going to go? And they always want to say, you should go back to school and like learn something. But in reality, I don't think that's the answer either. Mm-hmm. I feel like most times people go to college and they just end up being what's called a bag holder. You're just kind of there like, well, I graduated, now what? And the professor's like, well, if you can't make it in the real world, you can always hide in grad school, which I don't feel like is the answer. But if you want to go to grad school and that's who you want to be, that's your choice. But if you're just sitting here like, I don't know what to do, and you just keep, how do you get out of a ditch? You just keep digging. I don't think that's the answer. But a lot of times you have a lot of people that will just, they'll graduate 30,000, 40,000 in the hole, and they'll go to grad school, and then they're like 100, 200, sometimes 500. That's a big toll. Mm-hmm. It's like, how do you get out of that? You can't.
Yeah.
Like, you're never going to get out of that unless you win the lottery. Yeah. And then sad to say it, but once you kind of hit, as you get older, you're like, oh, I want to get married. But you got that on your record. Like, that's going to be a determining factor if you get married or not. Because it's just like, okay, well, that's going to be our credit sometimes. Or, like, am I going to be on the hook if you die for that? Like, certain states have different laws. But at the same time, it shouldn't be like that. I don't think so. I've also felt like the education system's a little different because of government intervention. Where it's like, I like education, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know why I had to take chemistry and all these other types of classes that had nothing to do, all these prerequisites that had absolutely nothing to do with my degree. Yep. But, it's like, the school's also telling you something. It's like, here, you got to buy the book. How much is the book? $200. How much did it cost the school to get the book? $1, maybe $3 at the very most. Like, they're making 10, 20 times as much money just on the books alone. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to tell you we're not profit. Like, let's just shoot the elephant right now. Like, okay, let's just say you're a profit, and like, let's not lie to each other here. Like, yeah, well, we get government funding, so we can't tell you that we're profit, but we are. Because, you know, I used to think that, oh, there's a zero tolerance on cheating because they cared about our education. No, they care about plagiarism because they're getting government funding. So it's just like, all right, there's that part. There's a lot of things that just didn't sit well with me, especially going to the university system where you're like, okay, here's a professor teaching the class. Who's grading your papers? The grad students. The grad students just like, okay, yeah, we're getting paid in student credit.
Yep.
Like, this is also another form of like slave labor abuse, but all right, you know, like it is what it is, I guess. Yep. So it's like, oh, I got a scholarship for grading papers. It's like, well, what's the professor doing? Oh, he's focusing on doing research, climbing the academic ladder, and getting grant money. And just like, all right, and he's just writing the book. What book is he writing? Oh, the grad students are writing the book. But it's just a different, I mean, I get it. You know, everybody wants to focus on research in this university system, which I don't entirely hate the people that are at the university. It's just kind of, you know, it is what it is. Like, I don't think necessarily you have to go there because you're struggling with your life at this current moment in your life. You have to focus on who you are, who you want to be. But it's very difficult, especially when you're 18 years old. It's like, all right, you're 18. What do you want to do? Go. Smoke weed, fuck bitches, work out, get money. All right, cool. You're going to get a degree in fratonomics. Like, here, you just got approved for $200,000. Go to the university of second choice at USC. You can live at the Lorenzo. And you're just like, all right, cool. The professor said you're going to make bank once you graduate. And this kid comes out with like brain damage, ends up, you know, addicted to whatever the hell he's on, opioids or some shit. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's just like I said, when I traveled, I learned more more staying in third world countries than I did coming here. Yeah. So it's just more of like, all right, you know, like relax, like high school's over, let it go. Like, I don't know who hurt you, but take a deep breath and just, all right, just restart. You know, you're not dead. You're still another day. You know, you woke up today. You know, where do you go from here? Don't just self-destruct and just use your credit card to go and do a bunch of dumb shit. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people. You know, it's either you're selling or you're sold, and a lot of people are always sold. And when they look at their phone, it's just like you're the product. There's a reason why these things are free. There's a reason why, you know, they want you to engage with it because they want you to buy things. Kind of like a casino, you know, they just want you to keep playing. Like, oh, you won the first 2 times, but you kind of gave it all back and then some because you kept running back to the ATM. You know, I think a lot of people look at things as dopamine. They want to rush at dopamine. But in reality, I think a lot of people are afraid to struggle. And I think that's where human beings need to learn how to thrive is I don't think anything worth it is easy. And I don't think anything easy is worth it. So I think you have to learn how to push through certain difficult moments of your life and go forward, even though it's, you know, it's scary. And same thing like you said about heartbreak. I feel like the universe brings somebody in your life for you to experience what love is. And I feel like the universe takes that person away for you to experience what pain is. So you can get lost in that pain and you can push yourself forward to limits that you never thought that were possible and figure out who you are and dig deeper to really find out who you are, because it's not a pleasant feeling. It's not fun, but you're going to have to figure this out whether you like it or not. I mean, I'm about to wrap things up. So where can people find you at?
I'm mostly active on Instagram, and my handle is the Christina Renee XO. The Christina Renee XO.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right.